Hello everyone. Yeah, how are you? Everything's fine here. Um, this thing's messed up. I think it wants to kill me. So today, let's talk about 10 cursed objects for no reason at all.
Number 10.
Robert the doll was owned by Robert Otto. He acquired the doll from a servant that was fired. The servant practiced black magic and she hated the family. At first, people started to hear the doll talk back to Robert, and over time, the doll became more active, being spotted in the windows when nobody was home, even breaking stuff throughout the house, and of course it was the poor boy Robert who got the blame, despite how openly terrified he was of the doll. The doll was then put in the attic, but even after Robert got married, it still terrorized him. But after Robert died, another family bought the house, and then found the doll in the attic. This family's little girl was absolutely terrified of the doll, even claiming that it wanted to kill her. Robert the doll is now on display in a museum, and you have to ask permission from the doll to take his photo, because if you don't, you'll be afflicted by this curse as well. Surrounding Robert the doll are letters from those that didn't ask permission, begging him to lift the curse.
Number 9.
Now, although dolls really do freak me out, this isn't all about dolls. I'm just trying to get a point across, okay? One of the most famous cursed objects in the world is Annabelle the doll, even having movies based around the doll, and it is thought that the doll is possessed by a spirit of a dead girl. The doll has allegedly changed positions, written messages, and done other paranormal things, like writing messages around the apartment that state "Help us." The doll has also been found with fresh drops of blood on her dress. Annabelle's activity started to get out of hand with unexplained scratch marks on the chest of one of their friends. Annabelle the doll is currently in a glass box at the Warren's Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut, with a sign that states, "Warning, positively do not open."
Number 8.
Myrtle's Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana, is thought to be one of the most haunted places in the world. But one item on the premises stands out above the rest, and that is the mirror that was brought there in 1980. Whenever a family member was dying in the house, they would cover up the mirrors so that the spirit wouldn't get lost after they pass. And they have also seen child-sized handprints on the glass.
Number 7.
Sean Robinson used to spend hours staring at the Anguished Man Painting as a child, simply fascinated by it. It had been hidden away by his grandmother, but after she died, Sean inherited the painting from her. After receiving the painting, Sean had some weird experiences in his house, from doors cracking in the middle of the night and screams that just seemed to come from nowhere. But the worst experience is the nightmares everyone was having that woke them up every night in the middle of the night, consistently, since they hung the painting. So eventually they decided to investigate the painting, and they found out that the original painter had mixed his own blood with the oil paints, and soon after committed suicide. Ever since then, Sean has kept the painting in his basement, where it still resides to this day.
Number 6.
Also known as the Dead Man's Chair, the Busby Stoop Chair has claimed many lives of those who dare sit in it. It was cursed by the murderer Thomas Busby before his execution in North Yorkshire in 1702. Busby killed his father-in-law after he sat in the chair without permission. Before his execution, Busby's final request was to have one last drink in his chair, and while sat in it, he allegedly cursed it, stating that death shall come swiftly to anyone who dares sit in this seat. When the number of deaths became too coincidental, the chair was then donated to the Thrisk Museum in the UK in 1972. The chair is still there today, but it is hung off the ground to prevent any further coincidences.
Number 5.
The Hope Diamond is an unusually large blue diamond, and it is said to be worth $250 million. And it is one of the most famous jewels in the world. With the first ownership record dating back to the 17th century, the diamond is said to be cursed and brings misery to those who wear it. The origin of the curse dates back to 1653, where a French merchant first obtained the diamond. He plucked the original blue diamond from the eye of a Hindu idol, and later on he was mauled to death by dogs. A Greek merchant known as Simon Mayajarrides owned the diamond, and he drove his car off the edge of a cliff, killing himself, his wife, and his child. Wilhelm Fels was a Dutch jeweller who recut the diamond again. His son ended up murdering him, along with killing himself afterwards.
Number 4.
Another allegedly cursed piece of art is the Crying Boy painting. However, this one was mass-produced. It was painted by Giovanni Bragolin. In 1985, the British Sun newspaper reported that firemen were claiming that these prints were found in burnt-down houses without any damage. Following these bizarre instances, a story popped up, claiming that the painting was of an orphan boy whose home had burnt down in a fire. Some regard these fires as pure coincidence, but it's just strange how the paintings have appeared untouched after raging fires.
Number 3.
The Tomb of Tutankhamun, a 19-year-old Egyptian pharaoh, is probably one of the most famous curses of all time. This tomb was discovered in 1922 by Howard Carter. It is said that anyone who dares enters the tomb will be struck with bad luck, illness, or death. And this is said to be because of the curse of the pharaohs. It is believed that Howard Carter's whole expedition was afflicted by the curse, and almost everyone involved with the expedition died under mysterious circumstances. The first person to fall prey to this curse was Lord Carnarvon, a financial backer of the expedition team. He died within 4 months of visiting the tomb from a mosquito bite that got infected. Other deaths that followed included the radiologist that x-rayed Tutankhamun's mummy, and 10 other people committed suicide, got shot, or were poisoned months after visiting the tomb. Whether the curse is true or just mere coincidence, it's hard to find logical answers to every death involved.
Number 2.
Here is the Tibetan begging bowl, an ornate hollowed out monkey skull, which has long tormented the man who owned it. And I'm not surprised, it's a hollowed out monkey skull. After which it fell into possession of his grandson, who soon after experienced intense poltergeist activity in his home before offloading it to a museum. To be fair, the skull's creepy enough as it is without any other supernatural activity surrounding it.
Number 1.
At the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh, there's a small statue that seems to represent a goddess of fertility. It dates back to around 3500 BC. The statue is called the Woman of Lem, but its more well-known nickname in modern times is the Goddess of Death. Because, if you didn't guess by now, it's supposedly cursed. The statue itself was originally dug up in Lem, Cyprus, in 1878, and the first victim of this curse was Lord Alphonse. After receiving the statue, several members of his family died, in quick succession, and the same thing happened to the next owner, Ivor Manussi, and this would then happen to every family to which the statue was owned. The last owner was Sir Alan Briverbrook, who died along with his wife and his 2 daughters. The statue has since been donated to a museum, where the curator allegedly died after a year of handling it. The statue is now kept behind glass to prevent the curse's reach. Robert the Doll was owned by Robert Otto. He acquired the doll in 1896 from a servant that hated the family for firing her and practiced black magic. Robert the Doll was owned by Robert Otto. He acquired the doll from a servant that was fired. The servant practiced black magic and she hated the family. At first, people started to hear the doll talk back to Robert, and over time the doll became more active, being spotted in the windows when nobody was home, even breaking stuff throughout the house, and of course it was the poor boy Robert who got the blame, despite how openly terrified he was of the doll. The doll was then put in the attic, but even after Robert got married, it still terrorized him. But after Robert died, another family brought the house, and then found the doll in the attic. This family's little girl was absolutely terrified of the doll, even claiming that it wanted to kill her. Robert the doll is now on display in a museum, and you have to ask permission from the doll to take his photo, because if you don't, you'll be afflicted by this curse as well. Surrounding Robert the doll are letters from those that didn't ask permission, begging him to lift the curse